Well, welcome again, Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans, in another one of our weekly conversations with some of the stars of the NTT IndyCar Series. And today, one of our stars is one of the most popular drivers in our series, a guy that's been around for, this year will be your 16th Indianapolis 500. You're not even 35 years old.
It's crazy, man. I was actually wandering around not long ago thinking about 17 years total, and you know, that included Champ Car years here, right? 16 500s, but then how many did AJ do?
35.
See, I'm not gonna do that. Like, see, and that's where you think about that. Like, I've got 16, or will have 16, hopefully under my belt, and 19 more.
It's crazy, right?
I don't know about that.
So you've been around racing obviously your whole life. One of the things I love about you is how passionate you are about the sport, but how passionate you are in particular about the Indy 500.
Well, I think it's contagious, you know, and for me, it was, you gotta see it. You know, there's something that just draws you in, sucks you in. And I know the fans that are watching this and the fans that are there, you know, for the 500, you get it. You know, I don't have to speak to that. You understand what that's about. But, you know, for me, it's just, it's so special. You know, I also get to live it and see it firsthand with my dad, you know, in the way that it changed his life. You know, forever. I mean, still to this day, you know, you always hear him referred to as the 86 Indy 500 champion. So that, you know, you see that, you experience it. And, you know, I've been close before. So I hope I get to personally here soon.
So when did it really hit you as a kid growing up that your dad was an Indy 500 winner?
I wouldn't say it hit me as far as what it meant. I always knew, but as far as what it meant until the early 2000s, you know, mid 2000s. I mean, I was still 15, 16 at that time, but, you know, starting to race. Obviously had my first 500. And now on 500 number 16, you realize how hard it is to, you know, to get one. You know, for me, that's when I think you realize the scope of you know, of what it meant to him. You know, and then of course you look back at his story, Jim Truman, you know, just the way that everything evolved. I don't know if there's been a better story than that. You know, if you could write a Hollywood script, the Jim Truman script, and his dedication to the sport, his dedication to my dad and everything else, and then he wins it and passes away 10 days later or so. You know, I don't know that you could write a better script than that, but, you know, it's a pretty special memory.
There's a couple iconic post-race images. Your dad and Jim Truman after your dad wins with the towel over his head and just knowing now what happens in a couple weeks, right? He's gone.
And that's the thing, you know, and Jim's dream was to go win Indy. And now that's passed on to my dad and I. A lot of people have asked, you know, in the good times, the bad times, you know, through the tough times there in 2015 when we lost all of our sponsorship and it was costing a lot of personal money. I mean, not only of my dad, but of, you know, of Mike Lanigan and Dave. And I kept saying, you know, Dad, we don't need to do it. I'll go drive for somebody else. At that time, I wasn't worried about like, oh, nobody wants me. I mean, I'll go find a ride. And he kept saying, no, my dream is to win Indy with you. You know, that was enough for me. It's like, okay, well, let's get through this. Let's find a way to make it happen and let's go do it together. So like I said, we've been close, obviously in 2020, you know, finished third. Takuma won the race. You know, what could have been there? You know, a few more laps happen. I know we still battle about this. I'm not sure Takuma would have made it on fuel. Even Dixie told me he thought he wasn't going to make it. You know, I knew I was good. That's all I knew. Who knows how these things shake out? But Indy, I always say, it's, you know, she's kind of her own being, and you know, and you've got this book, and every chapter is going to be different, and hopefully my chapter is ahead.
I mean, I still can't get the image out of you last year before, where you're in turn two, just on the pavement. The disappointment, because you just were there all day. And I think that's one of the things about you. You are calculating, you know what you have, but you also know you don't need to show it until it's really important.
That day is gonna burn the rest of my life. I've tried to do the best I can to block that out. You know, I don't think people understand what an advantage we had there. Now, I'm not saying we would have won the race, but what I am saying is I know from that point forward we needed one more pit stop and everybody else needed two. And sure, the race can shake out, there can be yellows or whatever, but that day there wasn't, right? It was a very green race. And it was shaping up to be that kind of day. And that's where, you know, I started doing the fuel saving tactic on like lap 15. You know, I started it from the very beginning, you know, and I felt that as a driver, you know, I had played it perfectly. And rarely do you get out of the car as a driver and go, yeah, I drove perfect today. But in that instance, it was like, I felt I was so in control all day of where I was, of what I needed to do, of how I needed to do it. Not only that, I had Elio right in front of me who was doing the same thing, not quite as severe as me, but the same thing, which made my job easier to do what I needed to do. So all the stars are aligning, and then, bam, and it's over. And so, maybe that's the closest I'll ever be. You don't know, right? I hope not. But my point is, that's what's hard to get those memories and just move on, because you don't know. Indy's such a challenge. Look, we go from that year to this year, past year. We were terrible in 2022. We weren't a player all month as a team.
Right.
So you just don't know, right? I mean, it may happen, it may not.
So you talked a little bit about the challenging time for the team and for you and for your dad, but you are fortunate that you have Mike Lanigan, David Letterin, people that are as passionate about IndyCar racing and the Indianapolis 500 as you and your dad.
Well, and I think really a lot of that is the Indy 500. I mean, even for Mike, Mike lives for the Indy 500. I mean, Dave lives for the Indy 500. I mean, maybe us, the Rahals, we live for the Indy 500, but we also love Road America, and we love Mid-Ohio, and, there are a variety at Laguna Seca, a variety of other places. I mean, for Mike Lanigan and David Letterman, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is it, really. Sure, we go everywhere else, but, for me, we are very fortunate to have that. Obviously, our new building, our new race shop, and everything is a showcase of that commitment to the sport. And we're excited about that.
So you're obviously still really passionate, still really competitive, but I assume your role on the team has changed over the last 10 years. And are you more involved in sort of the team strategy, team business side of things now than you were 10 years ago?
I go through phases. There's phases I was super involved in the sponsorship and all that stuff. And then there are phases where, I get the call from Dad saying, just be a driver. Okay, so now I go back to, just doing that. I would say that I'm not super involved in the day-to-day. But having said that, a lot of people rely on me, period. A lot of people trust, in my opinion, or if they need to get something done, it's like, hey, can you, what do you think about this? So I do get all of, I guess, at the center of a big business, there's got to be somebody in the hub, and I feel like I'm getting closer to that hub where, a lot of different areas can trust in me and confide in me, to come. But as far as the operations, we've got great people, to run that stuff. So, for me, I'm not in an owner role yet. Everybody thinks I am. I'm not there.
Well, if you think about Elio and where you are, you have 14 years left, and maybe more if Elio keeps going to even match where he is. So you're barely halfway through what could be your IndyCar career.
And a guy like Elio at Indy, he's still the man, right? Maybe age can hurt you in other races or other places. We haven't seen that with Elio, but in general, right? But Indy is a place that, I'm not saying an old man can go win, but often experience wins at Indy.
Yep.
Most often. And so, a guy like Elio, he could do this thing forever. And, same for me. I mean, I could step out of the full-time role and come back and race at the 500. I mean, that has definitely been on the front of my mind. I'm not going to retire yet, but I don't know that I've got a ton more years left in me to keep going at the pace that I'm going. And so, it's an opportunity maybe for me to run at Indy.
So talk about pace. It's not just the racetrack and the driving and the testing and the sponsor commitments. You've got a business and a family. I mean, can you juggle all that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's busy now. Obviously, I got 2 little girls. Courtney's been tremendous at home to help take care of the majority of that. But, with Harlan being 2.5, and Tinley girl is, 5-6 months, she's still young and little. That's a lot of work that goes into that.
So last question for you. As we're trying to grow our sport, one of the most important things, personality. Obviously, you have the name, you have a personality, but what you have is that sort of larger personality outside of the car. You're not afraid to speak your mind, to call it like you see it, even if it means going up to a fellow competitor and calling them out. And I think that's important for the sport.
I feel like sometimes honesty, particularly in today's day and age where I feel like we sugarcoat a lot of things, that, just being honest and just saying what you think. For me, I'm trying to move the sport further forward. There's, people that I certainly agree with in the way that they handle business or drive cars or whatever it may be. And there's people I don't, but I'm not going to be the one that's shy of giving an opinion or being shy of giving an idea, particularly ideas with the sport. I mean, this, I come to you all the time. Like, I want to move the sport forward. I want to move the Indy 500 sport. When when my time is up, you want to leave a mark and you want to see it grow. And I can be involved in that stage, but that's kind of my goal, is to just keep going down, pushing everybody down the right path.
So 2023 Indianapolis 500 coming up. You got a chance to win it. If I rewind to 2016 Texas 600, you don't lead a lap. In fact, you lead about this much of a lap, 0.008. You passed James Hinchcliffe. If you were doing that at the Indy 500, who would you want to be the guy that you could pass right at the last moment?
I would say probably Elio. Just because I respect what he's done, so much. And I told him, he's already got 4. He doesn't need 5. I feel like 5's a little bit selfish. So, if I could take one from him, that'd be perfect.
As Rick Mears told him, 5 is a lonely club. The 4-time winner club is a better club.
Well, you better believe he's going to try to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of our favorite drivers in the NTT IndyCar Series, and a guy that we'd all love to see in victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Graham Rahal.